Good morning. Welcome to the session today. Just want to highlight the session today. Our topic is discover how automotive industry drive user adoption in smart mobility. Just in case you're in the wrong session, you might want to walk out and find your session. Yeah. My name is Jason Tan. I'm from Intel, and we are really happy that you have chosen this session to come and listen and learn a bit about how we are transforming the auto industry between AWS and Intel. So I think what we're seeing today now, there are many changes in the auto industry. I think some of the keywords you are hearing today now, a lot of auto industry trying to make themselves more sustainable. You heard things about EV vehicle as one of the adoption. That's one changes we're seeing here. And the other thing we're seeing a lot is they're looking for more connection, how cars are connected to each other so that they can actually drive a lot more intelligent. The third thing, they're looking at how technology can drive more personalization. Because now I'm getting a lot more data about yourself. How do I make sure that you are able to personalize a lot more services around me? And these are some of the data we've seen from here. You can see that in 2030, the forecast is that a lot of the EV vehicle is going to take a lot of the market share. They're seeing 35% of them going to do it. A lot driven by the fact that people see EV as the right customer choice. Second is that a lot of government is putting a lot of incentive to drive the adoption of the EV vehicle. And the more thing you can see is that the charging network is getting more popular now. Everywhere you go to, there's a charging network to allow you to charge a vehicle. And you can see that the connector car, you can see that we're going to see by 2035, 863 million of the vehicle is going to be connected. So we see a lot of this mechanism coming in here. But it is not done without challenges. I think the first challenge is how do you scale your solution to drive those changes? The scalability is one of the things that we're looking at. The second thing we're looking at is that there's a lot of data being created. How do I turn data into action? How do I drive an intermediary between the data provider, the data user, and the data service provider? How do you connect these three things together? And the third thing you're concerned about is the fact that now you're using everything connected. How do you ensure security are taken care of? Because you don't want to drive halfway, somebody break into your car, stop your car, and cause accident. So these are some of the challenges that we're seeing in this area here. So today we're going to have Anas from the AWS going to spend some time to look at the mechanism we're trying to do to make this thing working. Before I invite Anas on the stage here, I also want to share something around the partnership between Intel and AWS. And the reason why we're here together, because we have been in strong partnership with AWS for the past 18 years. Since the inception of AWS in the cloud computing, we are one of the biggest suppliers in all the instances here. And I also want to look at where we play with AWS. There are three areas we play. The first area is what we call the very simple EC2 compute. Today, out of the instances you can see in AWS, 70% of them are running on Intel. The second part we play a lot with AWS is on the area of optimization. We actually work with them to make sure that all the different services created by AWS is optimized on the environment, give you the right TCO to give you the right price performance. And we also created additional services on top that can roll out with all the marketplace itself. So this is why we believe this partnership is very strong here. And this is a program that we actually adopted between AWS and Intel for one simple reason, because we know that the journey for you to move into cloud is not going to be that simple. You're going to invest, you're going to take some time. So we came up with this program, we call it the Intel Accelerator Program. The intent is actually to give you some funding so that you can make a journey much easier, so that you'll have some area where we can actually fund some of the costs involved. But that is not the platform I'm going to talk about that. If you're interested in a lot more detail, talk to us. After the presentation, we can definitely talk about that. Now, at this stage, I'm going to invite Anas, who drives the digital transformation and strategy for the AWS. He's going to share with you, this is the trend we see, how AWS and Intel come together to address a problem. Anas?
Thank you so much, Jason.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Anas, and thanks, Jason, for the great introduction on the trends and transformation we're seeing in the automotive industry. And I've always found it fascinating that a $200 smartphone generates more data than my car. And if you live in, like me, in North America, we spend more time in our car than any other place. That's actually a fact, either commuting, doing errands, or we love road trips. So now we're seeing this transition. We're seeing connected cars. We're seeing consumers demanding more personalized experiences. Like, you know me, like I've been driving this car. The car is connected. You have all this data. How can you enable an ecosystem that's scalable, that's secure, that uses all of this data and invents and creates new features and services that will differentiate your car from all the competitors in the market? And the question becomes, so how? How can we do this? And our answer, well, you are at reInvent, so what's the answer? The cloud. Of course, it's the cloud. The cloud is scalable. The cloud can help you put together faster innovation, more agility at your enterprise, and the ability to handle massive amounts of data. But with cloud adoption comes several key challenges. So you will see here, for example, the first challenge is a transition in the way we used to define our capacity and provision it. We used to sit together and look forward into the future and anticipate how much compute do I need, how much storage capacity do I need, and hope for the best once we deliver that capacity. And when we want to provision, mostly was done manually. We used to call it, we crafted that provisioning of the capacity. We're today moving to this virtually unlimited capacity that can be instantiated automatically using application programming interfaces quite easily. What does that mean? That means I can spin up and down all kinds of services, artificial intelligence, data analytics, processing power, high-performance computing on demand. Once I'm done, I shut this down, and there's so much automation. That's what we call everything as code. The second transition is transforming our asset and cost model. In the past, we used to have request capital expenditures, long budgeting cycles, and put everything as capital expenditure. We're moving now to an elastic capacity that we can use as an operating expense. And that means the barriers to entry have gone down significantly. There are, in so many instances, there's very low or no barriers. And that makes it either for entry or exit, which means I can either support experimentation, innovation within my organization, or face that from the plethora of startups that are operating outside that now have access to infrastructure that in the past they didn't have to. The third transition is in the assortment of compute resources that are available to us, moving away from basic servers, networking, storage, and data services to more of a comprehensive service platform that has the service building blocks nicely pre-integrated and enabling you to reconfigure depending on the business requirements as they change. And that places pressure on your central IT organization because now they need to differentiate their outdated manual processes and asset provision with this new model. Fourth, we have a shift in purchasing. Purchasing used to be done by central IT, where they come and say, OK, we need to buy, this is the BOQ or RFPs from central IT. Today, it's more in the hands of the business and the applications team. They can swipe a credit card, and they are subscribed to a SaaS application or to a new data provider. And that intensifies the competition on the central IT team to compete with the cloud providers, the public cloud providers. And number 5 is cloud access. In the past, we had to wait until our enterprise decides that we want to adopt this cloud, we want to build this private cloud, for example. Today, any individual can set up an account and have access to the cloud services that they need, and that levels the playing field, basically. IT cannot just say, you cannot have access. Anyone in the organization can go and have access to the cloud and build these resources. And to navigate these significant changes and transformations successfully, we need to rethink the way we organize our engineering teams. From what traditionally has been a siloed organization focused on expertise or functional areas. So we would have a specific team working on application engineering, a specific team working on quality assurance, operations, so on and so forth. And you know all the challenges that came with this. Some teams might not be sized properly, which they become bottlenecks in application delivery and engineering. We had to queues, multiple queues, because the request has to go to multiple teams that have competing priorities. We need to shift the way we organize our teams into this empowered, self-organizing team that has all the skills and competencies that are needed so that they can move quickly, they don't have to wait. And at the same time, because that's a very important question, if I'm pushing that decision-making and autonomy to my engineering teams, am I losing in terms of governance? Am I losing in terms of security? We support them with cloud guardrails that ensure they're operating within what we establish in terms of use of the infrastructure, operations, security, and even finance. We don't want a cloud, our AWS bill at the end of the month to be multi-million dollars. And as enterprises go through this transformation and rethinking of the way they organize, they face multiple challenges, including, first and foremost, the talent shortage. We really do not have enough qualified resources, not only understanding the technologies that operate in the cloud, but also this new way of working that's agile, that's self-empowered, that's more of better understanding of the business needs, more innovation, more risk-taking. We have this misalignment between IT and the business. Business wants to move fast. IT has to deal with its legacy infrastructure and transform at a different pace. So it's always also a big challenge. And the change itself is significant. The change itself is really cause friction throughout the organization. So the enterprises that succeed in navigating these challenges and realizing real value from the cloud, we see them, we call them cloud champions, and we see them leveraging 5 key value levers. The first and foremost, they really focus on talent. They understand what talent requirements are there for their new target state, what they need, and they work relentlessly on upskilling their teams, hiring externally to make sure that they have these skills available. They have strong top-down leadership that articulate the strategy, the vision, the value of moving to the cloud, and keeps pushing and incentivizing the whole organization to move in that direction. They have an organization culture that supports experimentation, because in the end, that's the core of innovation. And the cloud de-risks and reduces the cost of innovation and experimentation. So they work also on that part of the organization structure, pushing out new ways of working, recognizing champions. And they build a cloud operating model that's friendly to the organization operating model. And each organization is different. They have different levels of where they want to integrate that. But those that really succeed transform not only their IT operations, but also the way they innovate and bring services and products to the market and customers. And finally, they have proper governance that ensures, yes, we're moving in the right direction with operating within the set established guide rails and guidelines for us, moving into these outcomes. And the outcomes are significant. They see like they move twice as fast to the cloud as companies that do not leverage these value levers. They have more than twice the agility in responding to business changes and innovation requirements, and they have really, really high employee satisfaction. But the change is never easy. While all of us would love to have like a really straight line, smooth sail from where we are today to where we would like to be, this initial dip in business disruption is inevitable. It happens even at a household if you want to change. There is a dip that happens in the start. And that's where we need an organizational governance approach to change that will enable us to, A, reduce that area of disruption, that initial dip, B, reduces the depth of business disruption, so we do not disrupt the business as much, and C, deliver results faster and higher. So you will see when the orange curve goes up there, we are delivering value much faster and much higher at a sustained level. And that's why AWS emphasizes the importance of the concept of what we call the Cloud Center of Excellence. And the Cloud Center of Excellence is a core organization that not only organization and processes, but it also focused on cloud transformation adoption. So it has applications, migrations, data, infrastructure, architecture, organizational patterns. And this organization is basically mandated and tasked with leading the transition to the cloud so that we go towards more, to maximize our resiliency, efficiency, and business agility. So this is the approach that we usually recommend and take with our customers in moving to the cloud, leveraging the concept of the Cloud Center of Excellence. And that's an example of one of our customers in the APJ area, where we start basically by experimenting. We run a few small projects to prove the value, because we want to make a convincing argument. Why do you need to move to the cloud? So we run a few projects, get the proof of value, and once we see the organization is receiving that, there's positive attitude to the change, we build an enterprise-wide business case. This is why we need to move to the cloud. Here is the justification. And we move to establish the foundation. That's the foundation for the cloud adoption, upon which we can move in two parallel paths. The first path is the cloud native, the one on the left. And that's where we build in the cloud on the foundation that we have established. And the second path is how we deal with our legacy application and data resources. And that's where the Cloud Center of Excellence and the foundation that we built enable us to really accelerate mass migration and modernization, either as we are going to the cloud or once our workloads are in the cloud, reaching the same point where whether we are cloud native or our modernized and migrated applications can operate together to support this continuous invention at the top. The Cloud Center of Excellence has two main components. The first one is called the Cloud Business Office. And this is focused on the strategy, the financial management, the architecture. And it establishes basically the guidelines and the direction. The second piece is the Cloud Platform Engineering, the CPE team. And this team is tasked with designing, engineering, building, and operating the technical aspects of the cloud platform. And you will see there are so many capabilities. I'm not going to go through them all. You will see that we have identified these capabilities that you need to build as part of your Cloud Center of Excellence. And we have prescriptive guidance that's quite extensive to help you prioritize which things I need to build first, and how do I optimize these capabilities and drive them together. And the key differentiation here, because that's what we usually see in enterprises, is that we need to work both in business and technology in lockstep, because we want to avoid misalignment. And that's what typically happens when business thinks on their own and IT thinks on their own. And the Cloud Center of Excellence enables us to transition our governance more from the traditional approach, where we have a very clear split between the platform layer and the application layer. And within each, we have a clear split between engineering and operations. And it's very siloed approach, to more of what we call the distributed DevOps approach that we see most enterprises implementing today, that has a DevOps at the application layer. The same team that designs and builds the application operates it until its end of life. And the same team that engineers the platform operates it. Okay? And as we continue optimizing this approach, we will see the full stackness of that team, of the application teams, growing. So they will be taking more of the cloud, of the platform part. And you will see like a thin layer in the platform support, and a lot of it will be taken by the applications team. That's a really powerful business idea, because now applications are empowered to move quickly. They are empowered to move their teams, to come up with new ideas, scale ideas that succeed. It's a really very strong, very powerful business idea. This is a development pattern example that I think reflects the idea very well, that shows basically how the Cloud Center of Excellence product team and the business applications team can work together in a federated governance way, where the applications team will put in their intake. They say, this is what we're thinking to build. We are building a new driver assist feature that requires ABC. And the foundation team, the cloud team, take that intake and builds the components, the technology components on the cloud platform to enable that application. And the application will move quickly, all of that within our governance guide rails that we established in the Cloud Center of Excellence. And we can go into all of the details. We have, within each of these functional areas, we have work streams that are very well defined with workflows, with responsibilities and roles and responsibilities. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm happy to answer any of your questions after the session. So this is what we call the AWS landing zone. And the landing zone is a secure, scalable space environment on AWS Cloud that serves as the starting point where the enterprise can deploy their workloads and scale them up, knowing that when they do that through the CCoE and on the landing zone, they are following the guidance and best practice for cloud adoption, and they are implementing the best security measures and controls around that. And it encompasses a lot of things. Again, details I'm happy to answer later. But we believe that the landing zone is a very important quick win that the Cloud Center of Excellence can put in place to start putting deploying workloads and scaling. The next piece is security. It's a critical consideration if we are going to, in any industry, particularly in the car industry, because there's the implications of physical control of the connected cars. So it's really important that we make sure that we are putting in place the right policies, the right measures, the right guardrails for security. And working with our customers, we make sure that we are defining all the standards or the policies that go through authentication, user authorization, encryption, to make sure that anything that's going to be built in that landing zone and in the cloud is sufficiently secure to establish the confidence both with the end consumer and with the application developers in other parts of the organization. So this is a typical journey. It's actually a journey that we did with one of our customers. We advise that we establish the Cloud Center of Excellence very early on in our cloud migration journey. And you will see the first thing, once we have defined our strategy, this is our North Star, that's what we would like to be, and this is how we would go there. We immediately go into the initial build of the Cloud Foundation and the establishment of the Cloud Center of Excellence team. Then these two teams, the Cloud Business Office team and the CPE, the Cloud Platform Engineering team, started working together in collaboration, both on the governance and the financial management and business management, and on designing, engineering, and building the technical aspects of the platforms. And at this stage with these customers, we are at the optimization phase. We have the foundation established. We have the teams doing their work streams properly. We would like to make sure that we can automate everything that we can automate within that environment and keep optimizing it. Once that's done, we'll be able to start moving to the migration and modernization. And then all of the automotive-specific applications can be placed within that environment that they can take, and they move forward in opening this up to, I will show you a few examples of very specific use cases. So that's what I will leave you for, like a few specific examples of how we use the Cloud Center of Excellence and cloud adoption to empower agility in the automotive industry. Most organizations build this cloud foundation where you have all the components, the cloud foundation, the security pieces, the developer tools, DevOps, CI/CD frameworks. And on top of that, you start putting the organization-specific applications and technology components, including the data governance and data management platforms and framework, engineering workbenches. I have a specific example on an engineering workbench. Autonomous driving data framework, for example, high-performance computing, machine learning operations, generative AI to give access to the knowledge base that the organization has. So that's how the Cloud Center of Excellence takes care of all of these foundational levels up to the developer tools, DevOps and CI/CD, and kinds of frees up the applications team to focus on that other side. And also within this autonomous DevOps approach, full stack development teams that will be able to take one component, build it, operate it until the end of its operational life. This is another example that I think quite familiar to anyone who works with provisioning development environments to developers and engineers. So you will, like in this specific case, we call it the one-click path to provision project and workbench. Project is for a team, and within that project, each individual would have a workbench. And that workbench needs to be hardened, needs to follow the IT guidelines of the organization, need to have all the industry-specific tools and data sources integrated. So in this specific example, what we did is whenever there's a new business application team that would like to start a new project, they just fill up one provisioning form, one click, and the whole orchestration in the bottom is started automatically. And you will see that will start with creating AWS accounts, hardening the environments that you are using, configuring single sign-on, and many more services that are automatically infrastructure as code orchestrated to create that project space. And once the project space is created, also the project team can, with one provisioning form, one click, request an environment for each individual in that team. And the whole process end-to-end takes less than 90 minutes. Try to match that in an on-prem environment. So that's one thing, like I think it's a good example to show once you have the right foundation in place, once you have the right governance in place, you really can accelerate and show business value. And the third reference, the third example is this automotive data hub where the data consumers and data producers work together and collaborate in a federated way so that all of the innovative ideas for connected cars, for connected mobility, for customer services that we want to expose are made available through very easy ingestion of massive amounts of data, whether that's coming from your test fleet, from your connected vehicle, hardware in the rigs, and external data sources. And you will see there are lots of blocks showing the AWS services that you can leverage in each of these stages, making this data available for these teams in a very quick and inexpensive manner. Inexpensive is very, very important because we would like to empower and enable faster experimentation and faster innovation. So with that, I thank you so much for listening, and I will hand it back to Jason.
Thank you, Anas. So we're going to extend the session with another panel discussion. But before that, let me do a bit of advertising. For those who have not seen our solution for Intel site, please visit our booth. Our booth number is 1144. And we have some roundtable event. Just scan the QR code. You can get those information there. And for those who, sorry, you want to take some QR code? Let me give back to you. And there are some innovation paths that you can actually go in there and get some QR code and get some prizes. And with that, I'm going to invite the other two panelists, Jordan, Diego, want to come on board?
Good job, sir. Thank you.
So I think we heard from Anas in terms of how we actually drive the framework to engage the auto industry and actually get the solution done. We're going to get the panel expert here to give us a bit more detail in terms of how we actually implement it. So before I start, let me get the panel to introduce themselves first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think I'll go first, right? So I'm Diego. I'm a colleague of Jason. I'm globally responsible for the Intel strategy with Automotive and AWS.
Hi, everyone. Jordan Tariainen. I lead our global partner strategy within the Automotive and Manufacturing business unit for connected mobility and digital customer experience. About AWS about 3 years now, and then 10 years at General Motors prior to AWS. Thanks for joining.
Nice to meet you again. My name is Anas Tawile. I lead the strategy, digital transformation strategy at AWS Professional Services.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So the first question I'm going to ask is Jordan. I think there's so much conversation just now around connected car services. I know that you have done some of this implementation with a lot of auto company. You want to give us some viewpoint around the best practice? How should they approach it? Where is the challenges, outcome they should look at?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. I would say first, though, when you kind of endeavor down the journey, just know that it's very challenging, right? There's going to be a lot of wins. There's going to be a lot of failures, and just know that that's completely normal when you're, going to go innovate and build a new connected vehicle platform that can deliver seamless over-the-air updates to customers that you can monetize. Like, this is very complicated stuff, and if it was easy, these intelligent companies would have already solved this problem by now. But as it relates to like what you can expect or what are some best practices that I've seen working with a variety of our customers, and then also while I was at GM, is first you have to have like an aligned strategy between business and technical teams. There's a lot of executive stakeholders that are going to drive these initiatives, and if you don't have the left hand talking to the right hand, it's not going to work. So you need to align your IT stakeholders and your business stakeholders on like what do we want. I've seen a lot of companies, we hit on a cloud center of excellence, but standing up a COE team that really helps drive the governance, the prioritization of the initiatives, and holds people accountable to those deliverables. These are complex initiatives that take years to execute, and you can't really just expect to do something, pivot, do something, pivot. Like it's got to take an aligned strategy over time to really get the results that you're hoping for.
Yeah, and I would like to add also, this alignment becomes very critical also both ways. So understanding business priorities, but also informing the business in the art of the possible. Because IT can come to the business and say, now by using these new technologies, we can do things we weren't able to do 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago. And that's in that traditional industry that's usually focused on manufacturing is a breath of fresh air. They come and say, oh yes, oh now we can do this, now we can. So it's always like this two-way conversation is very helpful in informing the business in the art of the possible and informing IT on the business priorities and where they would like to take the experience.
Absolutely. And one thing that I think is missed, or at least what I'm seeing across a lot of different companies at the moment, is they're very focused on that technical, and they're not really thinking of like, how do I actually monetize this until it's actually done? Like if you're really thinking, okay, how I want to deliver an over-the-air update to extend my EV range, or I want a fleet management solution that I can sell to B2B customers, like they build the product and then they think, oh wow, okay, I have to integrate this into my billing system. I have to integrate this into my CRM. And really it should be working in tandem throughout that journey, because you want to make it as frictionless and seamless to like monetize all of that hard work as possible. And then I would also say just always put the customer at the center of what you're doing, right? Like if you are focused on delivering that customer experience, the results are going to come, whether it's revenue growth, whether it's brand loyalty improvements, whether it's CX improvements, whatever that KPI is. If you're really focused on like, what is the experience for the customer that I want to deliver, those business results and KPIs will come. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add, but.
I think you touched on all of the points with Anas.
Perfect.
Okay, Jordan, thanks. Anna's going to ask a question to you now. We see connected car services being adopted by a lot of auto company. What are the new future trends you think the auto company are looking at in the future direction? You want to give us some of your viewpoint here?
Yeah, we see lots of aha moments happening when the executives look at the data sets that they are collecting, and not only these data sets, because now, even like 2 years ago, I wouldn't say that, but today, with like easy application of AI and generative AI, generative BI techniques and technologies that are very easy to acquire and apply to the data assets, there are so many aha moments. Oh, now we can do this, we can improve that, we can do that. And we see lots of things that kind of turn from car to mobility, like treating the car as this your third space, basically. So your first space at home, your second space is your work. Third space used to be Starbucks. The next third space is going to be your car, because you're going to spend so much time in your car. And you would like, we see lots, for example, direction in business productivity tooling being available through the in-car infotainment systems, so that you can, take meetings easier. You don't have to worry about, connecting a phone or a laptop or things like that. And also like the analysis of the trends, like the movement trends of all of the vehicles going to certain places, predicting and taking this prediction to inform the driver. We suggest, to avoid Las Vegas Boulevard while an event is happening, for example.
Any other comment from Jordan or Diego?
I think you touched on most of the parts, right? So, but I think what is very interesting is that we are seeing a full transformation of the automotive industry per se, right? So we go from actually of driving, we go more towards an experience, right? So, and I think it's an experience-based approach that we're seeing across, I think, the automakers that we are working with. Is about how do we now actually create, I think, personalization. How do we also disrupt the manufacturing process, right? So I think it's from an end-to-end perspective that we're seeing a full change actually of how do we use the cloud, how do we use scalability, and how do we use automation, right? So and I think you say it, right? So 2 years ago, you probably not say what you're saying today. 2 years from now, you'll probably also not say what you're saying today, right? So I think we're in a very disruptive manner actually, and a very interesting time at the moment here at the industry.
And that's where establishing the infrastructure for continuous transformation and evolution and experimentation, innovation is critically important because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, but we need to be ready for it.
Yeah, I would say, a lot of people don't know about cloud, right? So when I talk to my family or friends about what I do, I'm like, if I just summarize it down to one word, it's literally data. And that's what I would say most of the automotive companies that I work with now are trying to develop is like having a unified data strategy. And that sounds so, easy, or not even easy, but just like simple. But it's like, you really do got to dumb it down, because if you start thinking about all the different complexities, it's really hard to do. But we're seeing a lot of them create almost like an enterprise data layer of customer related data to deliver that personalized experience, whether it's, sales and marketing data, whether it's dealer data, whether it's, connected vehicle data. Oh, they drive this pattern every single day, or they click this button in the infotainment system, or whatever it may be. Manufacturing data even, right? Like how many times have you heard of like companies, somebody orders a vehicle, it's like a black box. You have no idea when you're going to get that vehicle. You don't have an ETA, you don't have a shipping date. Like how can you really say, okay, well, we know you bought, this SUV and here's the timing and it's now being built and now it's here, and you can actually track that vehicle. When I was at GM, we did an initiative called Dude, Where's My Car? Like literally people buying $100,000 cars and like knowing nothing about them for 6 months, right? So I would say, really solving that enterprise data strategy, unifying that data is really how you're going to deliver that personalization that these customers expect, right? When you work with companies like Amazon or Google or Apple who do such a nice job with it.
And in parallel to that, like leveraging the data, having a coherent data strategy with the experience layer, you have also all of the optimization layers, whether that's in manufacturing or in battery performance or in range extension, all these kinds of things that you will need to use this data. You need it to be in the right format. You need it to be available because you don't know where the next brilliant idea is coming from. So you want to make it available to the innovators in your organization to experiment with and come back to you and say, oh, I figured this out. That's a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to throw the next question to Diego. I think we heard about Intel in EC2. We got all the compute instances, not very sexy. Is there any sexy product that Intel have developed for the auto industry?
I think Intel overall is sexy, right? So I think we have a very holistic approach, right? So I think the benefit that we have, we see it from the cloud into the vehicle. I think we touched about the disruptions that we are seeing, but I think for us personally, I think there are 3 different pillars that we're trying to engage and we're trying to solve, right? So I think the one is a very software-defined vehicle approach, right? So I think there's no automotive discussion that we can have that is not about SDV. And I think it's all about how do we solve, and I always call it the ECU spaghetti, right? So we're going from a very decentralized system to a more centralized system, right? So there's a clear need for high performance computing in the vehicle itself, right? So there's a clear need, and we've been seeing a lot of great architectures also with AWS of how do you centralize this approach and how do you have software dictate first the architecture that goes into the car. And this is something we've been very, very strongly engaged with, right? So we launched actually our own AI-enhanced SDV SoCs earlier this year, and this is something you will be seeing also from us moving forward. And moving from SDV, I think there's also a very second point that is very interesting and very important for us. We flagged this here on the slides, right? So there's the clear swap towards electric cars. And electric cars means we're getting batteries that become bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So, and how we talk also about energy. We talk about energy efficiency specifically. And this is also something we at Intel, we know very well. Not sure if you guys remember, like there was mobile workstations, and we were very clear about how do we actually optimize energy efficiency. And I think this is something that we will be seeing, and there's a very clear trend that we all need to engage with way more, right? So how do we optimize the life cycles? How do we optimize the energy management and the power management systems? Example here also to give, right? So we made an acquisition of Silicon Mobility to exactly do that, to exactly help us actually build and deploy with our customers EV power management systems. And last, right, so just to round this up, so we talk from SDV, but we also talk from electric vehicle, and I think this brings it back also here with AWS. We hear from a lot of our customers the need to scale, right? So they don't want to go, they want to scale up and they want to scale down. And I think I speak for both, right? I speak from cloud to the vehicle. And this is a clear trend also when we do not look into monolithic architectures, right? So we need to split this up. And I think here is a clear approach that we are having is about how do we actually introduce this with chiplets, right? So we need to actually have a more heterogeneous way that we look into architectures and a heterogeneous ways that allow us to scale up and scale down, actually connected between AWS as well as within the vehicle. So I think this is the three trends that we are working against, from SDV to electric vehicle, and also to the third one about the scalability, right? So, and we're seeing and trying to see this from a very holistic point of view.
Yeah, just in case you want to have more detail, can you talk to Diego? He'll be staying around.
Yeah, he knows his stuff.
One more thing also I see with our customers, trying to push intelligence to the edge. And that's where Intel, I think, plays a big part in putting like the right chips in the car to be able to deploy certain types of models that will make the decisions rather than having to wait even for the microseconds it takes to go back to the cloud. You can have a much better latency in making these decisions, the AI decisions on the vehicle itself.
It is. I mean, I don't wear Intel AI for nothing, right? So no, I think this is the way that we see it as well, right? So most of, in the automotive industry and overall, right, so we will be seeing, I think, most of the data being processed outside of the cloud, right? So when we talk about AI. And it means that we also need a way more holistic approach about how do we combine now actually from the vehicle to the cloud, right? So how do we combine storage? How do we optimize latency? How do we actually enable ingestion, inferencing directly in the vehicle, directly at the edge? And I think this will be a way, way more important piece along we go with the, I think, with the time.
So I have a question. So how would you see this? Like, it seems like the automotive industry is becoming more of a software industry that happens to be in the mobility space. How do you see this? Like the growing role of software in the automotive industry?
I mean, I think all of them have kind of, not all, but many have publicly said, hey, we're a software company now, we're a tech company now. They're going to continue obviously selling hardware and pushing metal and selling vehicles, but they really do want to monetize those adjacent services, whether that's a fleet service and a B2B service or a direct-to-consumer service, right? Oftentimes you sell the vehicle and then you hope they come back for service, and that's how you can kind of prolong your relationship with them and drive additional revenue after that initial vehicle sale. But now they're saying, okay, well, how can I, and I don't think years ago everyone heard like, oh, BMW charged for heated seats. Like that's not the play. Like that's not what they're doing anymore. It's now, hey, how can I, not in-vehicle Wi-Fi, but sell an over-the-air update that says, hey, instead of your vehicle going 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, it can go to 3 seconds. Or, hey, I want autonomous capabilities for this 1 month because I'm going to go do a road trip down to Florida to take my kids to Disneyland, and I don't want to drive for 12 hours straight. Right? So that's really what they're trying to do, is develop architectures that enable them to monetize these adjacent subscription services. And what's nice about them is the industry, it's very low margins. If you're an auto company and you're doing like 12%, 15% EBIT margins, you're like crushing it. It's very common to have 8, 10% EBIT margins, versus these subscription softwares, they're 60, 70, 80% margins. So for them, it's a real opportunity to monetize, and they're heavily investing on the talent and the upskilling to become these software companies, to become these tech companies, to really drive that adjacent revenue streams.
And I think also to touch on this one, I think very short, software will dictate how we build auto moving forward, right? So I think, and I heard this many times, right? So when we take, I think also public statements, when we look into Stellantis, right? So they will and they are becoming a software company, right? So I think our OEMs, they are becoming software companies, right? So it's a software first approach that we're seeing across the board. So if you say like, what is the importance of it, right? So I think software is the importance of the auto industry. And I'm thinking of Sophie, right? So one of the consortiums, also AWS joined. We're seeing many, many different, I think, players getting together, right? So understanding how do we build new architectures? How do we build them in the cloud? How we move them actually into the vehicles? So we see that there's a clear momentum, I would say, of different environments. Sophie, Eclipse, you name it, you name it, you name it.
Yep, thanks. Additional question. So I think the next question I ask is more common question asked at any conference. I think you can never run away from the fact that AI is taking a lot of shape now. the question I'm going to ask for you is that where do you see AI play in the auto industry? And how do the auto company should adopt it, and how should they drive it?
Yeah, I would say it's happening. So automotive companies have been leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning for decades. Obviously, generative AI is the new hot topic. As it relates to specific to the industry, where I'm seeing a lot of investments and common use cases being made is advancing autonomous mobility in a cheaper way, right? So whether that's scene simulation, that's virtualized testing of autonomous vehicles, that's a big use case that we're seeing. We're seeing quite a big of investments being made in smart manufacturing improvements and connected vehicle improvements. And what I mean by that is predictive maintenance, predictive quality, looking at data trends, applying AI on top of those data to really find hey, you know what, this machine is not acting how it's supposed to. You should go maintain that machine before it goes down. Or hey, that vehicle has a quality problem, and instead of it getting to 3 or 4 or 500,000 vehicles, so then they have to do a recall that costs them literally hundreds of millions to billions of dollars, stop it in month 1, right? Not wait 2 years before you finally detected that problem. That's a big use case that we're seeing. And then definitely from a customer care perspective, I'm seeing significant investments using AI ML to help customer care agents assist customers easier, right? So you call into a contact center, you have a problem. Instead of them having to put you on hold for 10 minutes to go find the answer, quickly using Gen AI to search knowledge bases to get an answer very quickly, or to really enable the customer to self-serve in the channel of, hey, how do I Bluetooth pair my phone for my 2020 Ford F-150? And it's very simple, easy instructions. And they're even integrating that into the vehicle, right? So what they're calling is almost a digital companion in your vehicle, where you don't have to search the owner manuals, you don't have to search Google, you just ask your vehicle, how do I do this? How do I buy this software update? What does this light on my dash mean, right? Those are some of, I would say, the common use cases. Then, of course, things like product engineering, code generation, prototyping, right? Not having to pay a design team all of this money to build this crazy concept, but literally just using AI and Gen AI to create that concept and kind of refine it from there. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
We also see lots of companies building digital twins of their manufacturing plants and instrumenting their production lines and plants to be able to collect really fine-grained levels of details of data that then they apply AI to and try to not only ensure the quality and predict failures, but also optimize the production systems themselves.
Yeah. But I think we don't even need to pinpoint this down to one use case, right? So if you ask what is the question, how does AI impact automotive, right? So it will and can impact across the board, right? So it can be benefits, driver benefits. We talked about personalization. It can be safety, right? So the safety aspects will change drastically with that. It's the manufacturing process, right? So manufacturing process that will be enhanced with AI capabilities. And so I think we will be seeing AI touching every single milestone actually, and every single milestone that we're seeing in the automotive space. I think what we do also need to be cautious is about what are the limitations, right? So what is the responsibilities? And I think this is something, there's a lot of talk about responsible AI, right? So and how do we actually integrate AI properly, safely, correctly into the different processes? And I think this is a watch out that we also need to take into account, and also where the impact will potentially be the greatest. We just touched on it, that AI and edge AI might become a massive, massive opportunity, right? So we need to deal different with different use cases. I think user experiences, user personalizations have a different facet than when we look into the manufacturing piece. So we need to also, AI will be touching everything. I think it's too early to say which one will be the big bet on it. But it will be, I think, the responsibility and how we deal with the responsibility for me will be key.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to change the lens slightly a bit different. I mean, we talk a lot about auto industry, and there's a lot of development there. How do you see the technology advancement, the progress being in auto industry? Using the same practice, what can we apply to other industry? What's your view on that?
I think it's really this transformation of traditional 100+ years old industries and trying to find their way into living peacefully and actually thriving on all of these trends, whether they're AI, dealing with data, massive amounts of data, focusing more on the customer experience and working, we call it in Amazon, working backwards from the customer experience to build everything that needs to be put in place to deliver that experience. I think these are the lessons that we can take, extract, and see with these traditional industries, to me, where executive might not necessarily quickly appreciate how quick this pace of innovation is and how disruptive it is to the business models. We're still, I think, still early stages, but this subscription mobility, for example, it's a big thing, and it's happening somewhere, and it's like multimodal mobility as well. Like many automotive players in Europe are playing in that area and have, like, building or acquiring startups that operate in these things. And I think these are lessons that many traditional industries can learn from and adopt, and don't have to go through the same lengthy learning curve. Actually, they can be much faster in adopting these technologies.
I think I may add on this one, like you presented the Cloud Center of Excellence, right? So, and I think if we take the first steps, they are not necessarily specific for automotive, right? So it's a very clear and it's just this very structured approach about how do you deal with business problems and how do you get to a business outcome, right? So, and I think thinking about governance, thinking about the right architecture, thinking about the right steps, about the right roles and responsibilities, I think the key factors that you can just copy and paste across solutions, and you can copy and paste for problem statements as well.
And the good news, honestly, is that there are so many help available out there. Like look at this collaboration between AWS and Intel. We would like our customers to succeed, and we'll make this prescriptive guidance. We spend lots of time putting together these guidance, best practices to support customers realize their business outcome quickly, and we work with Intel and partners to make these available also, these lessons and guidance to help accelerate the transition.
Yeah, I would say the customers that I'm seeing with the most success, and I don't want to spend too much time in the Cloud Center of Excellence, but do have like one team centrally governing their Gen AI initiatives. Not like having one IT team over here go build something and another IT team over here go build something. Because really that data foundation is really what's going to enable so much of the innovation, leveraging AI and Gen AI. So like having one team kind of do that, regardless of industry, it can be done. And those are the ones that, at least for the customer bases that I've worked with, I'm see the most progress. But then like industry agnostic or industry aside, like things like generative business intelligence, any industry can benefit from that. Like instead of having to, write a ticket to have a business intelligence team create a Tableau dashboard that takes 3 months and you got to trade this one off. It's like, no, tell me my sales in this region by this product line in this time frame and go do that right now and then write a report and give me insights. Like that can be applied to any industry. And then of course, things like chatbots, service automation agents, right, to kind of automate monotonous processes that somebody else is doing right now that a computer could easily do if you set it up the right way. These are some, I think, regardless if it's auto or manufacturing or healthcare life sciences, like it can be used across the board. And I hope our customers start to adopt them.
I'm curious, could you raise your hand? Who of you guys have a Cloud Center of Excellence or something in place?
Yeah.
Looks like there's the slide. Okay.
Which industry are you in, if may I ask? Industry.
Life insurance.
Life insurance.
Okay. Wait.
Automotive.
And something in the back as well?
Automotive.
Okay, so automotive is leading.
Are you finding that it's helpful? Like, is it working? Or we've observed too with our customers, the ones that are kind of just like doing little pockets of Gen AI initiatives, like they're barely getting off the ground. They're still in POC phases, but the ones that actually stand up a central team to really accelerate and govern that across the company are the ones that we're seeing really start to productionize a lot of the Gen AI use cases. So.
It needs dedication. These things are not easy. Like you mentioned, OTA, like the initial waves of OTA for some traditional like automotive makers, like they were tough. These are difficult questions, and they really need like dedicated teams. They need that. We mentioned talent, the shortage of talent.
Yeah.
You need the right talent, and you need the right partnerships. You need to work with partners who are willing to come and open the books and say, this is what we learned. Let's work together, because your success is what we would like, what will drive our success as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end the panel here, but I'm going to ask a question from the floor. Anybody have any question for our expert here? You can always ask. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I see in the industry is like a lack of standardization.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on it when you talked about where's my car dude and
Yep.
being able to track the location of the car you've ordered. But I think when it comes to also data from manufacturers, each one has their own kind of intricacies and they're closed and it's hard to access that manufacturer data. How do you think you can like shift that mentality to be a bit more aligned to the way software companies run, where we have like standardized APIs for developers to empower new business, innovation, and consumers?
Yeah, I mean, I think industry standards would help so many, especially the traditional automakers, right? The one that have been around for 100 years. Industry standards would help them so much. Not the problem, but what I think they have concerns about is like, well, if I can do it better than my other competitor, then my car's going to sell faster, then my experience is going to go better. But really, it's going to help the industry as a whole if they just align on how they do software development in the vehicle, right? Or perfect example, my last job at General Motors, I managed their tech partnerships, and with that, I got the privilege of leading their infotainment strategy. And GM, like a lot of automakers, like Apple CarPlay is a great experience for the customer, but they get no data. Like car companies get no data. If you just go into Apple CarPlay, they have no idea what you're listening to, what you're searching for, where you're going at all, right? And you want to have that data so that you can deliver a personalized experience. Maybe you can sell advertising, right? And where I'm going with this is that we wanted companies like Netflix, right? And we wanted companies like Amazon Prime to build us an app so then we could compete with CarPlay. Oh, you have Netflix in the car. Why do you need a CarPlay experience or an Android Auto experience? They just won't do it because they're like, hey, I'm not going to go build an infotainment app for GM, and then I'm going to go build another one for Ford, and then I'm going to go build another one for Hyundai Kia, and then because there's a lot of technical debt and maintenance with that. It's not like you build the app and then it's done. There's variations of architectures. There's updates that have to happen. So my point is these standards would help tremendously, and I think that there's a lot of standards organizations, but they're not getting the right like executive level commitment. They're getting the developer commitment. They're getting all of us there, and we're like, we got to do it. But they're not getting, the chief software officer of the company to go there and drive it. And I know at least AWS, we are members and sponsors of a lot of these industry consortiums, and we really hope to help accelerate and push the industry forward because it really will just help everyone out. So.
And maybe just to touch on this one as well, right? So how do we standardize this? And I think there's two key pieces, right? So I think number one, there needs to be fundament, right? So there needs to be a very consistent architecture across the board that is lacking. You pinpointed out as well, like the vehicle tracking that we have. I think we're all surprised about how many places still exist with low connectivity to non-connectivity, right? So, or even no cameras in place, right? So I'm always very confused when I go to different rooms and experiencing that. So this is number one, right? So it's the IT readiness that we need to have, because this is point one. And the second piece is more, I think, a change management side, right? So to your point, right? So we have a very consistent way that we work, right? So we are at the end human beings, and you are trying to disrupt the way that we work, right? So this is just, it takes time, right? So it's a lot about education, it's a lot about training, and it's a different facet of learning, right? So, and I think this is something that we should never underestimate.
Is there another question? If not, maybe we should give you 1 minute to just parting comment to the audience here.
Just like, first, thank you, of course, giving us 1 hour of your time is great, so I appreciate that. And I think we're in fascinating times. As we said, like what happened 2 years ago is totally different from today, and 2 years from now is unrecognizable. So I really encourage collaboration, working together, figuring out how we can build, to me, what I see as like the innovation foundations and infrastructures in the automotive companies that will enable them to continue innovating and leading how that experience for all of us, because it's going to affect all of us. We all drive cars, we all use mobility services. So to me, it's very fascinating and exciting times.
Yeah, I'd say +1 on the time. Thank you for coming. There's a lot of sessions. This conference it's my second time, and it's just chaos. There's so much going on. So we really appreciate you choosing our session. As it relates to AWS, I'm going to do a little bit of plug for the automotive and manufacturing team that I'm in. So about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we realized like, hey, anybody can provide cloud, not anybody, but cloud infrastructure, security, database, compute. How can we help serve our industry customers better? So we stood up an industry business unit called AWS for Automotive and Manufacturing. We've merged. And what we're really focused on doing is like helping our customers with industry-specific services, industry-specific solutions, and partners that are not just like agnostic, but like, hey, we know your specific problems. We have industry experts who have solved those specific problems or at least have helped accelerate them. And we'd love to help you do that as well. So I would love to talk to any of you about AWS for Automotive. We really think that we're differentiating ourselves against some of our competition because of these unique specific offerings that we're bringing to market.
I think I'll close it very quickly, right? So if this is of interest for us, right, so learning more also about Intel within automotive, please reach out. And I think I can only encourage everyone that it's such an exciting time for automotive. There's no right, there's no wrong, right? So I think please start testing different environments. Try to challenge, I think, also is the use of cloud, the use of scalability, right? So I think this is something I would just encourage everyone to think, how do we innovate jointly, and how do we have a more software-first approach across the automotive industry?
Yeah, with that, we end the session. Just remember that please complete the survey. This is what we need to get some data from you, whether we've done a good job or bad job. Appreciate your attendance. Thank you. See you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Good job, Anas. Well, thanks for pinch hitting in the last minute.